Hello. Okay, Christopher Nolan's latest Oppenheimer, one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I watched it in IMAX yesterday, and this movie was just, for me personally, a sensory overload. This movie visually was just stunning, with some beautiful sound design, fantastic, very real performances from all of the cast. This was just such a mesmerising and tense experience. It was a very sensory and visceral experience for me. And I just loved how the story was told and how the narrative was sort of laid out. And so you've got different moments in the timeline and it's kind of shuffled around. It's very similar to Interstellar. And as a result of how this story is told, there's this sort of momentum and energy that's created. It's almost like a ticking time bomb up until you get the test, that first test. And it keeps you at the edge of your seat. The tension is just incredible, and it's all down to the way in which Nolan tells his story and how it's played out, and with the editing, it's just beautifully told. And this momentum and energy never allows the story to sort of really come to a screeching halt. It never slows down. It never feels dull. It's a very tense 3 hours. And it just keeps you on the edge of your seat. Now for me, the most memorable scene is not actually that test when the bomb goes off for the first time. Don't get me wrong, that scene, that moment is just stunning. Just the way in which it's recreated through the sound design, like you couldn't hear anyone in the cinema, and it was just such a tense moment, almost horrifying moment, but also just very beautiful down to the way in which it was brought to life. It's a stunning scene, it's a stunning moment, but the most memorable scene for me is this moment after they've dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. What Christopher Nolan does is perfectly captures the horror and moral complexity behind such an act, putting into complete perspective of what they have just done. This is achieved masterfully by how Nolan crafts this moment on camera and through the performances. And just through the performances, this moment was just... This is what I wanted. This is what I kind of wanted to see from the movie, was to sort of see what these characters were going through mentally and how they sort of coped after this particular moment. And I just think the way in which Nolan did it was just, from the editing to the sound design to just the way in which it's shot. It was a beautiful moment, but also just that kind of gives you that terrifying realization, the horror of what they've just done. It just really manages to encapsulate those emotions. Oppenheimer is an experience. This is what cinema is all about. Just like Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, they just immerses you into the story in a way that just, it feels real, it feels raw. And just the way in which the film is told, you could just... This is beautiful craftsmanship when it comes to filmmaking. And I do have a couple of minor flaws with the movie. But overall, this film is just such a mesmerising, visceral, sensory experience. And you just end up coming away from the film, I did anyway, with just these images literally burnt into your memory. And I'm going to be thinking about this film for days to come. It's a very heavy movie. You know, I'm going to see Barbie tomorrow, so I'm kind of looking forward to that, as to sort of get something a little bit lighter. And I have to mention the beautiful score by Ludwig Göransson. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I absolutely loved the score, the music in this movie. It's a mix of orchestral as well as electronic, and it just helps add to just sort of the entire, it just helps elevate the experience. It's one of my favourite soundtracks of the year. But yeah, it's an experience. And, just sort of touch on some of the gripes I did have. I kind of wanted a little bit more focus on the actual character of Oppenheimer and sort of a little bit more into what makes him tick. And I just felt like there was a little bit of a disconnect there, and I think a lot of that was probably down to the way in which the narrative flowed. Like, especially the first act, it's very breezy, and perhaps just a little bit too breezy for me. I kind of wanted it to slow down a little bit, but at the same time, it also worked for what Nolan was trying to do with the story. Going back to sort of how I referenced the narrative to being almost like a ticking time bomb. So it's a weird one for me, because even though I kind of wanted a little bit more focus on the character of Oppenheimer and his personality, especially during that first act, at the same time it also worked. So I get like a very minor gripe from me. And I just feel like the way in which the film is edited and just how the narrative flows, you are lacking that kind of human emotion, that sort of those interactions between Oppenheimer and his relationships with his lovers. The film kind of just doesn't really linger on that aspect of the character. You do still sense the sadness and the heartbreak. It's still there, but they never linger on it. And it is down, I feel, to the way in which Nolan chooses to tell the story through the narrative. And so again, it works, but it also ended up being a minor gripe for me also. You know, the focus is always on getting to that bomb, that test. It's literally like a ticking time bomb. So my minor gripe is odd, because I also really liked how the narrative is laid out and told, but it somewhat sacrifices that deeper emotional connection between the characters that I kind of wanted. But again, just a minor gripe from me. For me, the movie does kind of lack that, you know, that punch to the gut, that emotional punch to the gut that I kind of wanted, but it leaves an impact on you. Like, this movie will leave you in shock, awe and wonder, and just sort of reflecting on us as a society and what we can do to ourselves and the planet. Like, this is a very heavy, deep movie, and it will leave an impact on you, but I do feel like it kind of just lacked that emotional punch that I kind of wanted. But at the same time, this movie was just fucking beautiful. Just the way in which this movie was crafted. These are minor gripes from me. You know, it's a horrifying film. It's almost in one aspect, it's a horror. And it will have an impact on you, which is what cinema should do. Oppenheimer achieves what I wanted it to achieve personally, which is really kind of dig into the moral complexity behind creating such a weapon and carrying out such an act. And I felt like Nolan perfectly achieved that. It does kind of lack that little bit of a human connection in regards to sort of that sort of emotional interactions between some of the characters. But like I said, they are minor gripes from me, because this experience, it's an impactful experience, and it's one that's gonna stick with you for days to come. I know it is with me anyway. And I just appreciated the way in which the story was told. I loved how the film was edited and just how the narrative was laid out. And it's a horrifying, beautiful, stunning, sensory, visceral experience. And I really want to go and see it again. It's a heavy movie. So yeah, I'm going to see Barbie tomorrow, as like I said. So kind of looking forward to a little bit of an uplift. But yeah, they are my thoughts on Oppenheimer, and I'm going to be giving Oppenheimer a 9.5 out of 10. What did you guys think of Oppenheimer? Let me know below and let's get a discussion going. Did you hate it? Did you like it? Did you love it? Is it your favourite Christopher Nolan movie? Let me know in the comments below and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Just on a sort of a final note with Oppenheimer, if you're going to watch it, please watch it in IMAX. That's the only way you really should watch this movie. But yeah, Barbie's tomorrow for me. I'm looking forward to checking that out. I'm hearing a lot of good things about it. So I'm really looking forward to checking that out and bringing you my thoughts on Barbie. My review for Barbie will probably be later tomorrow evening. But yeah, thanks for watching. Really do appreciate it. And I'll be catching you guys soon.